Okay, geweldig. Good morning, Chaim. How was your back?
Very, very rough and uneventful. I didn't pass by on my bike shuls and Hanukkah trees and Hanukkah and all kinds of Hanukkah paraphernalia. I couldn't say where I am. Turned out I'm in Teaneck, New Jersey, up there, right near the George Washington Bridge.
Beautiful. And how about customs on the way back? Like when my kids came, there was a long wait by customs. But there's like a narrow wait by Lewiston.
Well, I wasn't by Lewiston. I went to Fort Erie. And for the first time, instead of just one lane being open, there were 5 lanes open. And there were about 5 cars in each one. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and waiting. The guy in front of me, maybe 4 cars in front of me, still doesn't move. After like a good 15 minutes, I mean, you know what? The sheriff, not my sheriff, I'm gonna move. So I moved to the other one. And the guy just says, "Where do you live?" Doesn't ask me for no test, no nothing. Where do you live? And you're bringing anything in? Just like the good old days. Okay.
Yeah, that's what some of my kids had. They didn't ask for anything. They were customs of people again. Yeah, but that's because you filled out their life, Kat.
No, my wife didn't.
She didn't?
No,
still didn't ask you?
I did that. And I was going to be adamant that because I came home and I tried to develop, I said, "Bessie, God didn't do that." Because last time I told the guy, you remember I told him off?
Yeah.
Right? And she still didn't.
Somebody came with an arrived can and got fined and turned around.
I have 6 children who came through. They all did arrive, Kat, but they all came through. And most of them were not asked anything at all. We weren't even asked for the tests.
Supposedly, I did not do a arrive can. When I came home and I told Bessie that because you did a arrive can, everything worked out. She says, "Oh, come on, fish and I didn't do the arrive can."
Geweldig. See, there were a bunch of them did arrive can.
What's going to happen now in the States? They're wanting that test to go in.
Within 1 day. Now they want it within 1 day, yeah. It's going to get Labor Day.
Going to fly into the States. They want a test within 1 day. But I don't know if it's going to be a rapid, I assume a rapid test.
Okay, so let's see the Gemara. Asa Hahu Saba. So now that Rab Safra made this challenge, who's going to be able to bring something up? The Hahu Saba, this elderly gentleman, brought something up. Tanalei, he learned the following brisa. Good morning. It says in the brisa. So we're on the first wide line of Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. We're talking now about Yerusha. We're talking about Yerusha. Someone tells the executor of the state. He says, "Tenu shekel of ni b'Shabbos." What I want you to do is, I want you to give him every week. I want you to give them a shekel, which is a chatzi sela. So you'll take from my estate, and they'll get recurring revenue every week. You'll give them a shekel, which is a half a sela. But v'ruyin losses lem sela. And Rashi says v'ruyin losses lem sela means he has a lot of children, and the shekel per week won't quite cover their expenses. Really, they would be able to use a whole selah, not a shekel. So he was telling them to provide to his children only half of what their needs are. You think he might want them to get a job? It's possible, right? We're going to soon see that's in fact what his intention is. Vim Amar, you actually will give them the selah. And Rashi tells us why. He said shekel. So to Rashi, we're at the bottom Rashi on the right margin. If you talk a man not to give them more than a shekel, what he would have said was very specifically, al titnu lahen el a shekel. He would have said, give them no more than a shekel. He didn't say that. Behind the kamar tnu lahem shekel, v'loy amar tnu sela. Well, then you might ask me, well, how can I give him more than a shekel? If he wanted to really give them a selah, let him say selah. He wanted to make them work a little bit. He felt it would be worth their while to get a job. He doesn't want them to rely on the T3. Rather, he wants them to be motivated to do things on their own. But nevertheless, he didn't really mean to deprive them. He just wanted to be mizarez. But what if he was a tough guy? That's already very specific instructions. Then you'll only give him a shekel. However, what if he says, in Mesu, when my Yorshim eventually die, you know who I want the money to go to? So this is almost like a prenup where the Shver says, I'm gashing everything to my wife, but if my wife dies, I don't want it to go to her husband. I want it to go only to the kids, right? So then I'm clearly showing interest that I want money to end up going to somebody else. So that means I don't want the first Yerush to deplete it. So therefore, Bein Shomer Tnu, Bein Shomer Al Titnu, Saiv says Tnu shekel. Saiv says don't give more than the shekel. Ein nois lahem elo shekel. You only give them a shekel. So let's see what Rashi says about this, because this is already difficult. How could I control the money once I merge it to somebody else? Where do I have control to decide where it should go in the next step? So let's see Rashi. Mesa Yishra Cherem Tachteim. Afagab the Amar Tnu shekel. V'loy Amar Al Titnu elo shekel. Gali Bedaite. He's making it clear. V'loy boy lemesav lu elo shekel b'Shabbos. He only wants to give him a shekel. Why is that? Ki heichi dumesu Yishra Cherem Tachteim. So that he can be sure that the second level recipient will also get. So clearly he wants to try to save some of that. So the problem is, how could someone do such a transaction? Amalei Hamani. So right away, Ilfa said, I know this brisa, and I will tell you from a Mishnah, a source to this Allah. And it's going according to Rav Meir. Rav Meir, he the Amar Mitzvah Lakayim Divrei Hames. Zok Rashi, Mitzvah Lakayim Divrei Hames. Amalei Ilfa Hamani, I'm going to read along Rashi. Hamani de Katani. Afal Gav the Loy Sapki Bibotzer Misela, even though they really need more than the shekel. Lo Yavinu Ela shekel. You only give them the shekel. Who is this? Rav Meir the Amar B'Mesechus Ksubas B'Masnisen. Mitzvah Lakayim Divrei Hames. There's a special mitzvah to be Mekayim, the words of the mace. The lav mitzvah, if without this special mitzvah Lakayim Divrei Hames, Minadin Noisin Lahen Kol Royalhen. You should give the children the first level, Yorshim, whatever they need. Because technically it's all theirs now. The second level Yorshim have no financial interest in it. After the first generation of Yorshim pass away, then if there's nothing left, too bad. But since we want to be Mekayim the words of the mace, because Rav Meir says it's a special mitzvah to fulfill the rutzon of the mace, Anu Mekamtin as a moment we will be tight with the money to make sure that it's not depleted. We have to orchestrate that this should occur. Why? Not because legally, financially it has to be done, but because there's a special mitzvah to be Mekayim the words of the mace. Okay, so Ilfa had proven his point. Now there are those who say, "Vos punkt dis halacha." The Teretz is Ilfa. This is a perfect point for Ilfa to prove. Now Ilfa didn't orchestrate this; the Husab orchestrated it. Sometimes the Husab is referring to Eliyahu Novi. But why was it orchestrated this way? To show that Ilfa didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes you see, just like over there, the father wanted to make sure that the children will make parnasa and the children will not be helpless. So too, Ilfa was saying, so it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with making parnasa and also being a Talmud Chacham. Please don't say this over to anybody in my name. I still have a daughter to marry off. So I hope the Olam Leiku doesn't want you to. Practical applies to the activities of living. So if we're spending our entire time learning and not applying them to practical situations of life. Okay, so it's interesting you bring that up, because on yesterday's Gemara, where we had the first pasuk, where they said, let's go get a job, because it says, Efesh k'lo yeh b'cha'evyoin. But then later on, Rabbi Yochanan said, I'm going to go grab onto a different pasuk, ki lo yechtel evyoin mikerav haaretz. So the question is, what is the right mahalach? Are you supposed to get a job, Efesh k'lo yeh b'cha'evyoin, or are you supposed to sit and learn and be poor?
More like that. Harvard Kazeh.
That's right. So what the Mefarshim say is that if someone is capable of learning whole day the staff design, he's someone who should subject himself to Anias and rely on the tzibur to support it. But for the rest of the people who can't do that, the best thing for them is to do a balance, like Dr. Goldar is saying. We should make parnasa, and we should apply the Torah to the real life that the Torah was designed to regulate, right? That's what you were saying. Yeah. Okay, Zok to Gemara Vachi.
Rashi also explains it. He says that if Klal Yisrael is roy, there won't be and Oni or an Evion. If they're not, then there will be. So one is
Oh,
a
on these
blind.
two tzukim.
Yeah.
Explain it. Gewaltig. Okay, I mean, in Lakewood, they still on this Gemara, they have a big problem understanding it. It's very schwer. They haven't come out. They had to blind Tzarchin on it.
You're all right.
Anyway, I hope YouTube censors this section. Amru Alav, now we have one of the most fascinating stories that we all know about. Amru Alav al Nachum ish Gamzu. They said over about Nachum ish Gamzu. And everybody knows where did Nachum ish Gamzu get its name from. So the popular folklore is because he always said Gamzu-The. But there are those who make it much simpler. They say he came from a city called Gamzu. And it was the same thing with, there was another person we had recently, I forgot, that it also could just be the name of a place, even though our legend is that he always said Gamzu-The.
That whole city said Gamzu-The, the last one.
Could be. So Shahiyasuma Mishtei Enov. He was blind in both of his eyes, Le'alenu. Gidei Mishtei Yadav, both his hands were cut off. Kita Mishtei Raglav, both his legs were cut off, Le'alenu. V'chol Gufay Molishchin. He didn't have a good day. He was having a very hard time in life. And he didn't complain. You know what he said? He said, Gamzu-The. He was living in a house that probably only stayed up because he was in it, right? Because we learned yesterday from Rabbi Barava, Rabbi Barava was a structural engineer. Whenever they wanted to make sure that a building wouldn't collapse, they would bring in Rabbi Barava, right? In order to prevent insects from climbing up his bed onto his body, they would put the legs of his bed into containers of water, and hopefully the roaches can't swim across the water to get to the legs of the bed to climb up. So ants shouldn't be able to crawl up him. Once upon a time, this Gersa is questionable because we just learned he was in the base ruah, right? Bikshu Talmidim lefanis mitas. His Talmidim said, Rabbi, maybe we should take your bed out of here. You have enough difficulty as it is. I don't think you want to add to your excitement to be under a pile of rubble. And then take out the kelim. Why? Because get him out first, right? Then we'll worry about everything else. Omar, let me tell them no children. Banai, panu es hakelim. First take out the kelim. Panu es mitasi. Because I'm also a structural engineer. I'm confident that calls man shani bebayis ain't a bayis noithel. So they listened to him. Pinu es hakelim. Pinu es mitasi. And as soon as they take his bed out of the building, he was also a demolition contractor. And he left the building, and boom, the building came tumbling down. Rabbi, clearly you're a tzaddik gomer. You hold up buildings. How did such a horrible thing occur to you? Amar lahem, Banai, how did it happen? I brought it on myself. What are you talking about? I was on my way to my shver. I guess I was coming home for Shabbos Chanukah, or coming home for Pesach, or coming home for Sukkot. I was coming on my way to my shver's house. Instead of my shver treating me for Yom Tov, I brought all the groceries, because in Lakewood, groceries are much cheaper. So he told me if you could fill up a trunk of meat, which is half price on Lakewood, and fill up a trunk of groceries, which is half price on Lakewood, and then if you can go collect as many boxes as they give out with free food, so you can fill up a third truck, and you'll bring 3 U-Haul trucks, then I'll be happy to give you a beautiful free Yom Tov here in Toronto. So, one full of food, and one full of drink, and a whole truckload of nash. I'm tumbling along the road, heavily loaded, bulked up. And who do I meet? I meet an on. And he told me, Rabbi, Rabbi, give me something to eat. So, Baruch Hashem, I had 3 full trucks of food. Let me quickly go get my padlock key, open up the locks, roll up the back door of the truck, and we'll give you to eat whatever you want. Wait till I unload some food from the chamor, and it'll be ready to go. And what happened was, it takes 2 minutes to get to the back of the truck, to open it up, to unload the chamor. That's all it took, a couple of minutes. But he was so starved and he was so at the end of his line. What did Rav Nachum do? What was he supposed to do? What did he do wrong? What did he do wrong? He immediately went to get food. He's supposed to know the guy's going to die. So my mashgiach, Rabbi Avraham Golombek, Tzatzal, used to always speak about this Gemara. You know what a Taanis was? Is you have to live and breathe and think about the ani. What if I bump into an ani? He should have had food in his pocket, ready to go. That's what he was munning himself. He munned himself that I should have had food in my pocket so that if someone needs something, I could give it to him instantly without any delay. And for this Avera, look, for us, it wouldn't be an Avera at all. But what Rav Nachum is Gamzu considered an Avera for himself, look what he did. Halachti v'nafalti al panav. I went and I fell on his face. V'amarti, and he said, Einei, my eyes, shalichasu aleinecha. They didn't have rachmanis on your eyes. What do we didn't have rachmanis? He ran right away. But he munned from himself that if eyes are something that look forward, I should have looked forward and been prepared to help somebody in need. You assume they should become blind. Yodai shalichasu al yodecha, yizgadnu should be cut off. Raglai shalichasu al raglecha, yizkatu. V'lo niskara daiti, acha marti, kol gufi, yeimoleshkin. I couldn't feel comfortable that I'm punishing myself enough for the horrible avera of not keeping a crushed iron keyhole in my pocket. Now, we know there's a yid in our shul. He used to always keep a bilkis in his pocket because probably if he would see an ani, he would want to give it to them right away. So he couldn't live with himself. Like he was married with a shemer, right, with food. So he was probably what, in his 20s, 30s. Could you imagine? Up until then, he didn't do any averas because this is such a non-avera that he wanted to go so stark for. But until now, he didn't gozer upon himself such horrible gzeres, which means that up until that point in his life, he was nucky shebenaki, right? Because you see to what level he munned himself.
My all is that he felt that he shouldn't have used his first fruit shouldn't have been weight. As soon as an oni hears weight, the tune's out already. Oh, this is not a bad coming anyway. That's something to the positive rather than.
So you're learning it's the language that he used.
That's what I do.
Didn't feel, and I thought the people after raising him didn't feel the urgency and the suffering and the time. But in that, you don't really put yourself in that person's place.
On his level. Okay, sure. So I always like to say over what my Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzchak Perman, used to say over from his mashgiach, Rabbi David Kornglass, who was the mashgiach of Baltimore Yeshiva. And we love to delve into what did this guy do wrong? You know, we don't come to the dirt of the toenails of Nachum Gamzu and we're having a discussion of what he did wrong, right? It's a little bit funny. So Rabbi David Kornglass says over, we just had it a couple of parashas ago, in Parashas for Yishlach, when Yaakov Avinu met Esav, he put Dinah in the box. And Rashi tells us that the reason why Dinah was eventually taken by Shem was because Yaakov prevented her from possibly being machzer Esav L'toiv by being a good influence on him if he would have let Dinah marry. So let me ask you a question. Who in their right mind would let their daughter marry Esav? Nobody. So how could that be a tiny Yaakov? So the Balei Mussar say is that when he closed Dinah into the box, he slammed the box too hard. In other words, it didn't bother him enough that he couldn't give his daughter to Esav. It should have bothered him. Of course, the decision to give was correct. The decision not to give his daughter to Esav was correct. But the fact that it didn't bother him enough, that's Aver. So somebody raised his hand and asked Rabbi David, Rebbe, I don't understand the Aver. So Rabbi David said that makes perfect sense. Because anything that your fallacious mind could appreciate is wrong, Yaakov Avinu would never have done in the first place. The Averes of these people are beyond our comprehension. If you understand that this is wrong, Yaakov for sure wouldn't have done that. Any Aver that you know is wrong, Yaakov wouldn't have done. So it's such dakas to Gezachen, it makes sense that he would get one for something that we don't even understand why it's wrong. That's what I use as my guiding light when we gribble into the affairs of David and Melech and the affairs of we enjoy gribbling in the end of affairs. Imagine our affairs were on the screen. It wouldn't be so much fun, and people wouldn't have to clear up what the affair was. It would be pretty obvious. It would be no explanation at all. No subtitles required. Zok the Helen Gemara. Amruloi. Oy lanu. Shura inucha bakach. Woe is to us that we see you in this terrible situation. Amar lehem. Woe. Punkvekeret. Oy liam loy roishin bakach. How bad it would have been for me in Yenevelt had you not seen me in this matzah. Zok the Gemara. V'amai koyel Nachum ish Gamzu. Why was he called Nachum ish Gamzu? Zok the Gemara. The chol milsad av esol kalei. Amar Gamzu l'toiva. Anything that happened to him, he would always say, no, Gamzu l'toiva. Zim nachada. Okay, this is another fascinating story. You'll see that not only was he a structural engineer, not only was Nachum ish Gamzu a demolition contractor, he was also an arms dealer. Zim nachada, once upon a time. So, our Gedolei Ha'olam were also very big international merchants. Zim nachada, one day, Yisrael the Kehillah wanted to send a gift to the king to find favor in his eyes. That's how we do it. Amr, they said, Man Yezel, who should be the delegate that's going to present the king with the gift from the Jewish community? Yezel Nachum ish Gamzu. Let's send him. You know why? The Malumad Benisanu. He's a guy where mufsim fly all around him. Wherever he goes, there's mufsim. So whatever happens, we're pretty confident that he'll be able to fulfill it and get the results that we need. So what did they send with him? Shadu biyadai malay sifta da'avadim tayvish margalias. Now another pshat that I didn't see anywhere in the Rishonim, but maybe we can teach that the Malumad Benissen, who means he's Malumad Benissen because he's the only person that we know there'll be a nest that'll happen that nothing will go missing. The nest will be that nothing will go missing. So that's my own shot. So they wanted to send him a chest full of jewels. Azal Bas Bahudira Vilelia, or Bas Bahudira, he decided to spend the night in a certain inn. Vilelia at night, Kamu Hanach Diroyu, there were other people in the hotel, and they saw him coming with a big chest that said to the king, wrapped beautifully. So that's like a magnet. It's like a magnet for thieves, right? Tis the season. It's beautiful, beautiful gifts. Of course, it's asking. In Borough Park, what people do is there's so many Amazon thieves. What they do is they take Amazon boxes and they put all their garbage into it, and then they put it out. And then Amazon thieves come and take it away for them. So it works to their advantage. But often you see a box, you see there's going to be something good inside. You're going to steal it, and that's exactly what happened. The shakal is sifted, but they didn't want him to chop because he would, if he would, the moment he moved the box around. He'll see right away something's missing. So umalulu afra, they filled it up with earth, so that it still looked wrapped. So he wouldn't chop till way later, and by then he wouldn't even know who did it. Yeah. I'll talk to Gemara weiter. I'm not sure this. Anyway, he gets to the king's palace with the box full of jewels. Sharini Lesefta.
When he saw that it was full of earth, right? He said.
But the shaila is if he knew at that point of it.
So that's the Gemara is saying.
Right. So that's the shaila. The shaila is did he know or didn't he know? You're right. So it could be he knew and he took it anyway. It could be not. But Kimat Asam Sharini Lesefta Chazana Demala Offer. They thought it was full of earth. So it's mashma that maybe he didn't know. So that's probably why these two disclosures. Could be, yeah, could be that's shot. Yeah. The question is would Nachum ish Gamzu go into the lines then knowing that it's earth? In always, right? So maybe he himself didn't know. So I'm not sure. So at the end of the day, the king opened up and saw a thing full of earth. He wanted to kill Nachum ish Gamzu. What are you making a joke of me? He wanted to kill Ali. The Jews are making a joke out of me. They don't respect Omar. So that's when he said Gamzu l'toiva. So if Nachum ish Gamzu said Gamzu l'toiva. Also Eliyahu came. He made himself look like one of the king's advisors, one of the people who belonged in the White House during the Hanukkah celebration. Amar Lei, he said, Dilma ha'afra me'afra davamavu. Nachum ish Gamzu didn't suggest that, right? He just was quiet. He said, Gamzu l'toiva, we'll figure it out. So he says, how do you know what type of earth this is? Before you condemn this fellow, this might be literally the silver bullet that you're looking for to take care of your enemies. Because by Avraham Avinu, what type of earth did he have? The Shadi Afra, when you threw earth, have a saifa, you turned it into knives. So imagine you threw a handful of earth and it turned into a whole cloud of knives. Or Gili, if he threw twigs, Havagiri, it turned into spears. So you see clearly that you never know. When these Jews give you things, don't dismiss it so quickly, the advisor said. This might be a very potent weapon. This king happened to have had a thorn in his back, in his side, because there was a Medina that he was trying to subdue. But he couldn't deal with it. He couldn't subdue them. So he figured, you know what? Let's try this super weapon that Avraham Avinu or that Nachum Gamzu, that the Jewish community has offered me, and let's see if we can apply it here. In other words, this is called arms testing. This is called what's the word for it? We'll use this nation as our testing ground for our new technology. But Kumene, they tried it out. He just took a handful of earth, threw it in the direction of his enemies, and boom, it was all over. It was like a Hiroshima and a Nagasaki. They right away. What's the word for it when they give up? No, what is it when a country gives up a war? Surrender. They right away surrender. So they were so happy with Nachum Gamzu that the king says, for such a gift, I need to give you a gift back. He took Nachum Gamzu into his special storehouses, into his vaults. They filled up his whole chest with beautiful gold and diamonds, and they sent him off with great fanfare. No, the same Holiday Inn that he stayed in on the way in, he stayed in on the way back. Even though he knew that its security was a supreme and unparalleled anywhere, because there's never any crime in that particular hotel, he decided that he wants to stay in that Holiday Inn again. He must have had mileage. He probably had loyalty points. So he says, why should I pay? I'm going to use my loyalty points.
Yeah, but he left his box in something much.
Kiasu, Besu Bahidira, he stayed in that hotel again. Amrloi, they asked him, Ma Isis Bahadach, the Abdullah Yakra Kulahai. What exactly did you bring with you to the palace that they are so happy with you? Because they knew it was just a box of mud. Amrloi, what do you mean? The same box that I took from here, I delivered there. So they realized, where did this earth come from? It came from their courtyard, from the courtyard by Marion. That courtyard, they dug up the earth to fill into the box because they took the diamonds out. So they figured, hey, this courtyard by Marion has very valuable earth. So Sashula Rayu, they bulldozed the whole building and they just filled up dump truck loads of earth from the site, because they figured this site has some phenomenal value as weapons. And they figured they're going to bring it to the king and they'll get huge fanfare. Amrle, they told him, Hi Afra, the Isiacha, Mididonhu. The earth that Nachum Gamzu brought you, you know where he got it from? He got it from us. We have more to deliver to you. But they tested it out, and it didn't work. So those people who perpetrated this crime were killed. So Nachum Gamzu could say Gamzu L'Toiva, because he just walked oblivious to everything, and everything worked out behind him.
Maybe he actually had this intention when he stayed in the same Holiday Inn.
Could be. So the Rebbeinu Shalom should help that we should be zeichet to such success that whatever goes on, everything should be fixed up and work perfectly behind us. We should be zeichet to malach to nasa derech. Zok Gemara, Eizehu dever. What is a dever? What rate of death has to occur? It's ira meitzia chamish meis raglei. When people die 3 days in a row. Dr. Goldar mentioned yesterday that it means not 3 people dying in the same day. It's 1 person per day for 3 days, and it has to be male and not female, because women could have many other reasons why they die. It doesn't necessarily show a gefa. But 3 men dying show a gefa. Okay, so Tanya about Ir Hamaitia Chamish Meis the Elef Ragu, a city that has 1,500 people, so it's 3 times the size that we've been discussing until now. Going Kfar Aku, the Yotzim and the Tisha Meisim B'Shloish Yomim Zechazeh, Harei Dever. So it's basically the same ratio, right? We triple the ratio. What if it wasn't in 3 consecutive days? Rather, they all died in 1 day or in 4 days. Ain't it ever? So we're turning over onto the follow from the base. The was another city. It was a city. The halacha is Gozer of Nachman bar Rav Chisda Taanis. So there was a city just like this that this many people died, so it qualified as a dever, and therefore Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda was Gozer Taanis.
He died all in 1 day.
All right, they died in 1 day. I'm sorry. So he was machmer to call it a dever, even though it doesn't meet our guidelines. Amar Nachman Yitzchak, come on, Rav Meir, who are you possibly like in making this gzera, even though we hold nothing yet? Much like Rav Meir. What does Rav Meir hold? Rav Meir expressed an opinion, not binyani taanis, binyani dever. He expressed an opinion, binyani, what makes a shar amud for stoicing 3 times. Because the Tanakama said that what is a shar amud? If he stoices 3 times in 3 days, it means once a day. But 3 times in 1 day, that's not called a shar amud. Rav Meir said, what are you talking about? Richek nigiyos of chayiv, if the shore was so wild, but it only stoiced once a day for 3 days. You're saying that makes him tamud. Here of nigichayzel again, an ox that's stoicing 3 times a day, that's clearly a sharamud. That's a wild animal. So if 3 people are dying the same day, that's so much worse than dying on separate days. So therefore, it may help. I'm sorry.
Maybe all these 3, when people die all at one time.
But here they died of a sickness.
It wasn't COVID.
Yeah, but the
Died in
sickness
family
could have
now.
been in one. But the fact that it all happened at one time, the fact that the shore happened at one time, shows that it might not be this plague.
That's a very good svara.
You want to say died with
And
COVID?
that's the Tanakama svara. That's a very good svara. It's a chanami. Look, okay. Amalei Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Leikamar leisa lekabam. You live in a city that has not been a Torah there. It's a shvacha city. You're living with the riffraff. We're a chosh of a city. So why don't you come and move to our city? Amalei Tanina. We learned in a brayso. Yosy Omer loy mekayme shalav the mechabdoi. The place of the person is not mechabadim. And the adam mechabades mekayme. A person is mechabed his place. She came matzina b'Har Sinai. She calls man shashchina shruya alav. As long as the shchina was on Har Sinai, Amar Torah gamatzoin v'abakar al yiru el mul ha'harahu. However, nistalka shchina mimenu. So you see, it's not about the Har Sinai, it's about the Kedusha of Taanis. When Pierre, I shouldn't say this in the middle of that, but when Pierre Paul Nevers was demoted by, what's his name? Aaron O'Toole, what's his name? Nobody who knows who he is? Aaron Ahu, right? Aaron Ahu. So when Aaron Ahu demoted the most effective member, talent, in the Conservative Party, I actually wrote Pierre Pelliver a letter and saying, how could they take you, the finance critic, and remove that portfolio from you when you're doing such a good job? So he writes me back, Joe, the job doesn't make the man makes the job. And whatever portfolio I'm given, I will do my best job. He actually got back the finance critic portfolio about a week ago. Anyway, you find it by the oil moed sheba midbar. She calls man true not as long as it was built. Once they rolled up the paroiches and they started dismantling the Mishkan, Hutru Zavin Vamataroin Likadusha. Amala, he said, they told him, if you're telling me that the man makes the place, and that's why you don't want to come to us. So again, let's look at the 2 people talking. There was Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, and there was Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was the chosh of a person. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was the chosh of a person, and they wanted Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak to come to Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, no, I'm going to stay where I am. So then it's Amala Ihachi Nekamana Legabemar. Maybe we should come to you. And I believe Rashi says, no, Rashi doesn't say. So he said, maybe we should come to you. Amalei told him, no. Muti yave money ben pras, it's al money ben money. if you look at the names, it's very interesting. Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak, it doesn't say Rab Nachman Bar Rav Yitzchak, it says Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak. But by Rab Nachman Bar Rav Chisda, it says by Rav Chisda. Why? Because Rav Chisda was an Adam Gadol, not a Choshev. Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak was not he wasn't a Rash Kibahag. He was a regular person who had a very Choshev son. So therefore he said, Mutav Yovei Mana ben Pras, Eitzel Mana ben Mana. It's better than me, who my father isn't such a Gadol, I should go to you. How about the I'm not sure that applies across the board. That I don't know. So if I look at Rashi Pras, I'm not going to start from the beginning. I'll start from the very first wide line. So Aviv Shar Nachum by Rav Chisda Gadol mi Yitzchak Aviv Shar Nachum. Mi the mystery by Rav Chisda Vidach Nachum by Yitzchak Meklal Shaloi Nisma. Didn't have smicha. Very interesting point. Okay, Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. It's very easy Gemara, and it's very Geshmaka Gemara. So let me go back over here. The Surah. So we're 5 lines down in the wide lines. The Surah has Dabarta, the Shivavuse, the Surah have Dabarta. In Surah, there was a Magefa. So I guess, depending on how you learn, 3 people in 3 days, the Shivavuse, the Rav, but in Rav's municipality, Rav is Dabarta. Savru B'nei. So the people thought, Mishum Schuse, the Rav, the Nafish, must be that the reason why in Rav's area there's no Mageva is because Rav's Schus is protecting his area. These people who made this assumption saw in a dream that as follows: Rav the Nefishes Schuse Tuva Hamilsa Zutra Leila Rav. Rav is much greater than just someone who could save someone from a Mageva. So the Mefarshim asks, so for sure he could save someone from a Mageva, Machlal Matzai Mada. If he's so much greater, he could sure save them from a Mageva. So why would this be proof that it's not Rav's credit? So Dr. Mefarshim, it's not proof that it's not credit, but they're just trying to show him it's not Rav. It's not Rav. Ella, you know in whose chus it is that the whole city is safe from a Mageva. This is an eye-opener, because this tells us how your small little private good deed that you do, you have no idea what impact it has. You don't know if you're saving your entire community by a small, simple, little good thing that some private, anonymous person is doing. Elo mishumahu gavra, deshayol mor uzavila lekfura. Maybe there was one person in the city who happened to have owned a good shovel and a good axe, and he would lend it to the Chaver Kadisha to dig graves. He wasn't even digging the graves. All he did was he lent out his shovel because he had a good shovel so that the Chaver Kadisha could bury people. And that schus, the Gemara is saying, is what saved an entire city from a Megefa. We have to realize how powerful our Ma'asim are. It's unbelievable. You're looking at me funny. It's mind-boggling.
I heard from somebody that many times who doesn't punish somebody when another person is affected, unless the other person deserves it as well. So if that other person does tshuva, then all of a sudden everybody here now can't get punished. Hashem has their time.
That's right.
So it's like another way, it's like a back door
to get in.
City.
That's right. With the Reiknis, which we learned was a big city, have a delecta. There was a I think it looked as a fire, right? It looked as a fire, right? So what happened? But in whose neighborhood there was none? Once again, the item thought it must be because the Rav Huna, the Nafish. It's Chazalu B'Cholma. Hi Zutra Rav Huna. This is you don't need your Huna's chusim for this. Elim Shemahi Itza. It's in the schus of a woman. The Mechama Matanura. She warms up her oven with a lot of wood and she bakes her own bread. But then she calls her friends who can't afford fuel to heat their ovens, and she lends out her oven that's hot, so whoever wants to bake bread in it could bake bread in it. Right? So that's unbelievable. After she lights up her oven and heats it, she let everybody use it.
They don't want to use it for the heavy duty stuff.
But you do see what these little actions that are anonymous. What the Kodesh have. Counts, huge. That's right. right.
Your question before, why is it a ride and it's not Rapuna? The Gemara is saying we don't need Rapuna. We'll save him for a bigger headache.
Uh-huh.
Like when I went to a beer for money, the beer said, "Don't come to me for money to buy your Rebbe a menorah. Come to me when you need $10,000. Don't come to me for $50 because this is just gonna,
Here.
come to me."
So Amalei Rabbi Yehuda. Also Kamti, Gazer Tanisa. There was some insects that were invading. Rashi's Arba Shemachalas Atzvua. So there was some Arba here, so he was Gazer Taanis. The people told him, I don't, because there's a couple of insects here, you're being Gazer Taanis, like a Mafsadan. They're not doing any damage. Yeah, there's insects here, but they're not doing any damage. He told him, what do you mean you're not doing damage? Zav the Aisu Badayu. You see that they brought food with them? Did you see that they brought suitcases full of food that they're going to be eating on their own? No, they're going to be eating from us. So of course I have to be Gazer Taanis. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda. Ika Musna Bechaziri. The pigs are dying. I'm not sure who was growing pigs, but the pigs are dying. Gazer Tanisa, he made a Taanis. Zok Gemara, Nemo, Kusav Rabbi Yehuda, Maka Mishulachas, Miminechad, Mishulachas Mikol Aminim. Are you going to tell me that because the pigs are dying, so now there's a danger of all the animals dying, and because of that you want to make a zer? We don't need to worry about the pigs. Zok the Gemara Loi, and this is a fascinating line in the Gemara. Shiny Chaziri, the Damyan Ma'ayu Livna Inch. Their digestive systems are very similar to human digestive systems. I guess that means we eat like chazer, right? Okay, so let's stop. And Rashi says here, this is a medical thing. Zok the Gemara, Zok Rashi. Rashi says over here, Ma'ayu b'nei ma'ayin shalen. The intestines of a pig are like humans. She'ein lam keresh hapnimi kishar be'ema. Doesn't have an inner stomach. The siman ra, and therefore it's a siman ra to humans if pigs are dying. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Amalei l'shmuel ikamusna beichuzoi. There people are dying beichuzoi. Gazer Tanisa. Amalei v'amerchak, but it's far away. Amalei leka mavrahach the pasukli. There's no bridge or toll or blockage that's going to stop it from coming. It can come right over. We have to be Gazer over here as well. Amalei Rav Nachum ikamusna bar Yisrael. There's a hunger. There's not a hunger. People are dying in Eretz Yisrael. Gazer Tanisa in Chutz La'aretz. Amar he said in Gevira Loika, Shechva LaKol Shekain, if Eretz Yisrael is suffering, for sure all the other lands which are only secondary to Eretz Yisrael got to worry. Time of the Gevira v'Shivcha, HaShivcha v'Shivcha Loi. So if it was two cities in Chutz La'aretz, maybe then you wouldn't be Gazer from one to the next.
Far away.
That's right. V'Amar Shmuel Ika Musta Bechazoi and Gazer Tanisa. Shmuel was Gazer at Taanis from one city to the next. Shani Hasam, even the Ika Sheyarasa, the Lavi v'Asabadei. This city happened to have had a very good bus service that ran back and forth. So it's very easy for the coronavirus to cross because people were going back and forth. Zok the Gemara, Abba Umna, Hava Asalei Shalma Misifta de Rekia Kol Yema. Abba Umna was a person who was Makis Dam. He was a bloodletter. He wasn't a Rav, wasn't a Dain, he wasn't a Tamachach, he was a regular bloodletter. Okay? And every day he got regards from Shemaim. A Basko came out from Shemaim and said, Shalom Aleichem at Abba Umna. Can you imagine? Ulabaye kol mala yoyme de Shabbat. Every Erev Shabbos they greeted him from an Abaye Agit Shabbos. Rava kol mala yoyme de Kippur. Rava only got this greeting once on every Yom Kippur. Havakachal shadaite da Abaye yishuv da Umna. Abaye was a little bit hurt because I only get Shalom once a week, and he gets Shalom once every 7 days, once every day. It's funny. This was their normal life. That they're used to talking to the Basco. It was normal for them.
The more you talk to you, the more you got he's afraid you're going to misbehave. The other way around.
I hear. But they told him, Amrulay, they told Abaya, you could never come to the avoida, to the special activities and things that this Abba Umna does. What did he do? What was a special thing? Whenever he did his job, and he had his waiting room, and he had his clinics where he did the bloodletting, he kept the women and men separately. He kept their mechitzim between them. In the waiting room, he separated the men and the women. He was very makbid on tznius. This is a Gemara you're going to like. Not only that, the Isser Levusha, the special gown, the hospital gown that he made his patients wear during the procedure, the Isbe Kaina, the Havas Bezia, kikosilta. So the way it worked is they made him wear a hospital gown that covers the whole body, and the needle prick, normally there has to be an opening to get your needle in. He had a needle built in to the beged, so there was no opening. It also means that they used the same syringe from patient to patient. Let's not talk about that part, because Dr. Goldar is going to walk out if I talk about that too much. But I'll call upon him, he had this syringe built in to the beged. So he have his asila itza, if a woman patient came to him, have a mabusha, she wore it, so he couldn't see any part of her body. He so he shouldn't look at it. And not only that, he didn't have a billing department. As soon as you got up, they didn't say, how are you going to be paying for this? We need your own part. No, that's not how it worked. He had a pushka on the wall in a private area. It was like a voting booth. The Islay duchte the tzniya, the shadi bebshiti. The shekel, the money that he took, the money that he charged, he had a special box that was like in a voting booth where no one could see. The Islay, his patients who had money, shadi be, they threw money in the pushka to pay him. The Leslay, they didn't have to be embarrassed that they didn't put any money in. If a Rav came to him, he would never allow him to pay. And after he would get up, he would give him money, and the Meforshim stick in, if it was a poor person who wouldn't afford to be able to buy food after the bloodletting, and you have to eat food to re-strengthen yourself. After bloodletting, he would give them money. The Amalei would tell them, Zil bari nafshich, go buy something to eat so you should become healthy. Abaye said, yeah, he's such a chashuv guy, I want to check him out. I want to see who he really is. Usvinu v'chilinu v'shkinu. He gave them to eat, he gave them to sit down, and gave them to eat and drink. Umachluhu bistaki. And he gave them beautiful, beautiful linens to sleep on in their beds, very choshev linens. Bilal yaknai. Let's suffer in the morning, they thought it was the Hilton. So they packed the towel into their suitcase. They took the Hilton towel and they took it with them. And they went to the shuk and they figured they're going to sell it. They're going to sell it. They put it on Kijiji. They had a gorgeous Kishmaka Egyptian bath towel and they advertised it on Kijiji. And who was there to buy linens? Someone who just lost some linen. Abumna. Amalei, they told Abumna, L'shai Memar Hechashavu. Tell us how much you think this is worth. So Amalei, Hachi Vahachi, this is what it's worth. Amalei V'Dilma Shavu Tvei, maybe it's worth more. Amalei, no, I just bought one recently. Vahachi Sheklinu, I know how much I paid for something that looks just like this. Amalei, so they told them, they spilled the beans, they told Didachni, it's really yours, Vishaklinu Minach, and we stole it from you. Amalei, they told him, you're not stupid, right? You know we took it. You know it was us. So what did you think? Why did you think we took it? You thought we're gazlonim, or you thought that I'm trying to get you to buy for more? What were you thinking? Amala, you know what I thought? Amina pidyon shvuyim iklu l'rabbanim. I figured you had an emergency tzvek where you had to raise money quickly to redeem somebody who was captured. And you were embarrassed to ask me for money, so you figured you'll steal from me, and that's why I didn't care. Amalei, okay, so take it back. Now that you know it was all a test, here, take it back. Amalu akad. Who shaita aschetinu midai toy? I was misiach das from it. I was mafkrit. Let's talk happen. So that period. So that's where Abaye proved that Abu was talking to someone who was off the charts. Now, Zokimar, Rabbi tells Abaye, you're complaining that you don't take Shalom every day. I don't even get it every week. I get it once a year. I told him, Mistayach, be happy with what you have, because Magnus Akula Karcha. Your schus is protecting your whole city. Be happy with what you have. Don't be jealous of what Abaye has. And with that, we will stop. Okay, have a wonderful, wonderful Erev Shabbos, a wonderful day. You should all have a big tzlocha. And Mitchem tomorrow, we're going to learn an hour before